attack. You've got you've got 6 props. So here's what we'll do. We'll start with an overview of the game and then dive right into the props. We'll start early, AFC. Baltimore lane 4, 44.5 on the total. So you can start with a little overview, and then we'll jump right into your props, okay?
Sounds good. And for me personally, I do lean a little bit more towards the Baltimore side. I have this number right at the 4 mark. So if you still can get that 3.5, I do think there's some value there. But I will say betting against Patrick Mahomes, especially as an underdog, is not something I'm really looking forward to do. So that's personally why I did stay a little bit more in the props department. But I do see a very competitive game. I see one that's going to go down to the wire. For me, what it really comes down to is, can the Ravens take advantage of this weaker Chiefs rushing defense? I think that'll really be the question we're all pointing at towards the end of the game, and something that this Ravens offensive coordinator is going to be looking to exploit the most. So for me, I do think it's going to be a heavy rushing attack from the Ravens, and that's personally why I'm such a big fan of Lamar Jackson in the rushing attack in this one.
You mentioned, and you've got over 64, and sorry, Amal, just jump in with these. You've got over Lamar Jackson 64.5 rush yards, and then flip side, you're going to go over 26.5 rush yards for Mahomes, and also longest rush over 11.5 yards.
Yeah. So I'll start out with Lamar Jackson. For rushing props, there's 2 things you ask from a quarterback. It's going to be either efficiency or volume. A high volume guy is going to be a Jalen Hurts, a Lamar Jackson, a guy that's going to have 5 to 6 designed rushes in the playbooks. And then you're going to have an efficiency guy, a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who's going to depend a lot more on the scrambles rather than those designed runs. The reason I like Lamar Jackson the most is his playoff resume as a rusher is insane. 3 games with over 10 rushing attempts, 2 games with over 15 rushing attempts. When it matters the most, these quarterbacks are a lot more likely to put their bodies on the line. And when you look at these weapons, right, you got Zay Flowers on the outside, a kid that I really like. He's got the toughest traveling corner in the league in L'Jarius Sneed on the other side of him, a guy that the Chiefs have asked to shadow every single wide receiver one they faced so far this year. Beyond that, we have an injured Mark Andrews. I don't know his health. I'm not a doctor. The sports books are telling you the story. His price is currently set at 35.5. That is not a healthy Mark Andrews line if I've ever seen one. So for me, when I look around, I look at this Chiefs defense. How do the Ravens take advantage? I think it's once again putting the ball in the MVP's hands and letting him really carry the brink. Obviously, Justice Hill is great. Gus Edwards is great, but I see over 10 carries for Lamar Jackson in this one. I have him around 75 rush yards in this game.
Stuart, I love that call by you. You mentioned it. 3 games in the postseason. He's gone over 100 yards, guys. Is this one you'd potentially look at a ladder bet on Lamar Jackson? And I thought you made a great point in terms of the guy's going to give up his body. He's going to make the plays. You go back to his days at Louisville in some of the biggest games. He had monster rushing games. I know college is different, but he's run the ball on the ground when necessary.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is one you can get at 75 yards for some decent plus money, and then you can get yourself a really nice payday at that 100 yards mark. It's exactly what you said. And then when you look at it, this Chiefs defense is kind of perfect for opposing rushers. They play a lot of cover 2, which means their safeties are deep. They're trying to limit explosive plays. And then they bring a lot of blitzes. They bring a lot of additional pressure, which is going to ask your quarterback to make a split-second decision and make that rush. So I definitely like his regular number, at the safer, 65 mark, and then why not go to 100, get a little bit of plus money involved.
Okay, if Baltimore is going to run the football, linebacker matters. So tackles and assists, Nick Bolton, the Kansas City linebacker, over 9.5 here, Stuart.
Yeah, I really like the correlation in this spot. If I think Lamar Jackson's going to have a good game, if I think the rushing attack is going to be great, of course I'm going to go to the linebacker on the other side who's going to be responsible for picking all of this. And it's kind of beautiful. It takes the hard part out of it. I don't know if it's going to be Justice Hill or Gus Edwards. I just know they're going to run a lot. And if you're running a lot, then your opponent's signal caller, their lead linebacker, he's going to have to be very involved. And if you look at Nick Bolton's counting stats on the year, they're not as spectacular as you'd want. There's been a lot of injury. There's been a lot of workload saving, keeping him healthy for the playoffs. Well, this is when it absolutely matters the most. He had a 10-tackle game in his first playoff outing last week. I think he's going to be highly involved, not only in slowing down Lamar Jackson, but also Mark Andrews and having some assist in the short passing game as well with a guy like Isaiah Pacheco. Tons of chances, not only capitalize on Lamar rushing, but then also Bolton tackles on the other side of those same rushing attempts.
Let's go with wide receiver Jamison Williams. You like him over 27.5 receiving yards for the Lions in this game. Tell us why.
Yeah, when we move over to the Lions side, Jamison Williams is one of my favorite targets. You can get 27.5 receiving yards. Another pivot, I like 29.5 rushing and receiving yards as well if you want to kind of give up 2 yards to get that extra variance right there because, man, Ben Johnson has been very good as an offensive coordinator, not only getting your traditional rushers involved, but you're going to have some creative play calling if you want to beat these 49ers linebackers. The thing that the 49ers do better than any other team in the NFL is they take away the middle of the field. They got a guy in Fred Warner who's a linebacker, a safety. He does every single thing possible for that offense. He's spectacular, and they're fantastic against the middle of the field. For me, when I look at this Lions game plan, it's going to be avoiding those stacked boxes. It's going to be beating those corners deep one-on-one. They've really struggled without Hufanga, their safety, in the past. Ever since he went down, they've kind of struggled with those deeper balls. For me, Jamison Williams, Josh Reynolds, the kind of quieter names are going to be the guys that I think actually take advantage of that San Francisco weakness.
Bit of a correlation with LaPorta and his prop for under 18.5 as far as longest reception because of those linebackers. Before you break that down, let's back up a bit. Lions 49ers, Stuart. It's 7.5 right now and 51.5 on the total. Just kind of walk us through the side and total here.
Yeah, for me, last week was Packers or bust, and I kind of feel the same way this week with the Lions in the sense that the 49ers are a fantastic team, a phenomenal offense, and a pretty good freaking defense as well. But at the end of the day, what really concerns me the most is, are they going to be a team that is playing with the lead? Because if they're not playing with the lead, right, we saw Dan Campbell receive the kickoff, aggressively go out there and get the ball first last week. If they suddenly put the 49ers in a situation where, once again, they're down 7, it's really interesting how they react, especially without a guy like Deebo Samuel, or maybe if Deebo Samuel is working in a more limited capacity. It's really, how much do you trust the 49ers going against a team that hasn't allowed a 70-yard rusher all year long? That's what this team is built on. So for me personally, it's Lions or bust against the spread.
Okay, LaPorta under 17.5 for longest reception.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know people aren't going to necessarily love this one. The volume was through the roof last week. 11 targets, 9 catches. And guess what? He still went under this mark because while I love LaPorta, the guy's a workhorse. Whatever drugs they got him on, give me 2 of those. The guy is a menace. I don't know how he's doing what he's doing. And hey, guess what? He's played 80% of routes in both games. So that shows you really how tough he is. For me, if he didn't go over this game last week in the 11 target mark where he had all the chances in the world, then I don't see him going over in even a tougher matchup. And I really think you can kind of lean on some common sense right here. The guy is banged up. He may be awesome. He may be tough. Is he going to get a 20-yard catch against the team that allows the fewest explosive plays in football? I don't know about that. Like I said, I love the guy, Iowa bred. You can tell this guy is tough, but it's about the longest reception here. It's about, can he make a play downfield? And I just really don't trust the yards after catch ability in a situation where he's going against the best tackling team in the NFL. I love LaPorta, but I'm going under this week.
Stuart, great breakdown. Only twice in his last 7 games has he exceeded a reception over 18.5 yards there. Real quick, Stuart, want to get your take in terms of unit against another unit. Which team do you think, whether it's the Baltimore defense against the Ravens, against the Chiefs offense, or whichever side, do you think has the biggest advantage this weekend and people can maybe look toward in the prop market?
Yeah, for me, I think it's going to be that Ravens defense. I hate to say it. I hate to go against Chiefs. So I'm going to say the rushing attack right there. Isaiah Pacheco and that offensive line, especially without their guard who was just ruled out, Joe Thuney, right? Just before this show, ruled out. That's ESPN's highest pass block win rate guy in the league. That's also PFF's highest rated pass blocking guard. So for me, when you look at such a key offensive lineman like that, I think taking him out of it, and then what we just saw with that Ravens defense last week, I have a very hard time seeing Isaiah Pacheco establish the run in this game. I think it's going to be one where Patrick Mahomes kind of has to do it all himself.
Are you excited to scout the next head coach in Washington, Ben Johnson, calling plays for the Lions?
Oh, I am so excited. I mean, seeing this guy's creativity, you kind of already heard it in my bet. Going on a guy like Jamison Williams, kind of a guy that can get that end around, can take a bubble screen to the house. For me, he's kind of the ultimate example of what Ben Johnson can do, which is get the absolute most out of a guy like Jared Goff, a guy who McVay, who we, acknowledge as one of the best coaches in the league, kind of threw this guy off to the side. I can't possibly get anything more out of Jared Goff. And look what this guy did. He's taking him right back to a freaking Super Bowl. So yeah, there's nothing more this guy can do. I'm in love already. Let's sign that contract. Let's get that deal done, baby.
Visit VSiN.com to get current odds, listen for free, find showtimes, and download VSiN sports betting podcasts.